Hey everyone, welcome back to Dad Space, podcast for dads by dads. But today we had something special. We're going to be talking to men, particularly recently divorced dads, men's husbands. You've gone down a new path in your life and you're looking for some direction. You're looking for some guidance. You're looking for somebody to kind of walk with you and kind of give you that wisdom and expertise to be there for you, another guy in your life. Marty is here with us today. We'll be talking about resilience and transformation and rising from the aftermath of a heart-wrenching divorce. Marty is here, and I'm excited to have him on the show. We're going to be talking to you about guiding you through your post-divorce journey and enabling you to rewrite and reclaim your power in your relationship. Marty's here. Welcome to Dad Space, Marty. Glad to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much, David. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So we met on a meetup group, and it's for podcasters. And I know you were talking about the fact that you're working on something in the future, but Marty, we got a chance to meet each other, and I'm like, I need you on my Dad Space podcast because we talk to men here, and I know of several guys in my life who are on this journey and they're really looking for resources. They're looking for somebody to talk to, somebody who understands, and a resource. And you offered everything that I'm looking for on behalf of my friends. So to have you on the show is exciting. So glad to have you here. Again, welcome for being here. Tell everybody, first of all, you got a website and everything as well. Let's talk about that right off the top. Tell us about your website and a little bit about what you do.
All right. Well, so I am Marty Suidgeest. I live in Las Vegas. For most of my life, I've been sort of like a numbers guy working on the business side of things. But then as of late, the last couple of years here, I've been focused on the opposite side, which is personal transformation, personal growth, becoming more self-aware, recovery from traumatic events that happen in our lives, those kinds of things. And so I've helped people, and especially men, through various transitions. And then I'm now kind of focusing primarily on recently divorced men and helping them transition, get through that tough period from being married to their new single life. So my website is divorcedmensacademy.com. So on that site, there is a sort of it's called an academy because it's kind of school-based, right? There's reading materials you go through, you complete homework assignments, and then I give you feedback on the questions you answer in your homework. And men see a lot of personal growth based on that. And I do also offer one-on-one coaching for guys that really want to go more in depth or kind of speed up their recovery process.
Excellent. What if you were sitting across the table from a recently divorced gentleman, a guy, and they are completely unsure of what's next in their journey? Any opening thoughts before we jump into the conversation that you would say directly to that person? It's raw, it's fresh, it's really new to them, and they just don't know where to start in this post-relationship stage. Any words of wisdom just to kind of kick us off?
Sure. So here's something about divorce. We're not taught how to recover from divorce. There's no school we took in high school or college or any level, because most of us, I think, go into a marriage thinking, hey, this is the one, I'm going to be with this person forever. Where, nobody says, I'm going to get married for about 5 years, then I'm going to divorce this person. We don't, that's not how it works, right?
Right.
So yeah. We're not really, taught on how to deal with such situations. And therefore, when they happen, a lot of people are pretty lost, right? And then women are more likely to seek support from their friends, their family members, or from a coach or from a group. And us guys, we are men, we are tough, we are strong, we internalize things, right? We tough it out. We're like, I don't need help, or we're embarrassed to talk about it. So that's kind of where I recognize, like, hey, there's a lot of guys that can use some real guidance in navigating this process.
I think that, yeah, women seem to have a better circle of friends. Men, for some reason, tend to be a little more on their own. That kind of isolation. We get our identity from our relationship with our partner, and when that breaks, we don't seem to have the same circle group that maybe our ex-wife has, where they just talk more, they are together more. This is wild, broad statements, but I just find that the guys that I know seem to be quite lonely in this process, where they don't know who to turn to.
Yes, exactly.
Any thoughts around that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, and you mentioned like social circle. So there's a lot of things that change when you go through a divorce. Some are kind of more obvious and some are a little less obvious. So one of them is the social circle. So when two people divorce, like married people tend to have married friends, right? Single people tend to have single friends. So when there's a divorce, and especially if it's an acrimonious situation,
Yeah.
an unpleasant divorce,
Yeah.
uh, friends might choose one side or choose the other side, or they might just back away, like, hey, those two are battling it out, and we're just going to let the dust settle a little bit, kind of take a step back, right? And so, or or you just find that, hey, now as a single person, my married friends, they want to do married couples things, right? And I'm a single person, so the social dynamic changes a lot. And one thing a recently divorced guy should kind of come to understand is that's natural. It's going to happen, right? And so they should work on a new social life to replace a chunk of the social life they've lost. And so with that, a lot of guys will ask me about dating, like, hey, I've been married for a good amount of time. Now I'm going to date again, and I'm rusty. Give me some pointers. What do I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
So my first answer to that is don't date, which, and I'm not saying like, hey, you shouldn't date at all, but what I tell the guys is you should focus on yourself, working on yourself. I say, hey, divorce is a great opportunity to plan out this new and better you, this new and better life. So I encourage guys to focus on kind of that future self and setting new goals and working toward that, rather than focusing on the immediate, because the immediate would include things like dating. It may include things like, in my case, turning to alcohol. Guys will turn to alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing. When I went through my divorce 12 years ago, it was a very dark kind of couple years after that. So I did turn to alcohol. I just internalized everything. I didn't talk to anybody about anything. And so it was like a really difficult time in my life. And that's one of the real motivations for doing what I'm doing now, is to help guys see a light, choose a better path, and not go down those dark paths.
When you talk about like looking at yourself and kind of figuring out who the new you is, it kind of feels like when you move to a new town or a new school when you're a kid, nobody knows you in that new environment, and you could be one way in your old life, in your old school or your old town, where people knew you as quiet and shy and introverted. You have the opportunity when in this new setting to be whoever you want to be. So you don't have to be the same person you were before. It can be an opportunity to be somebody different.
Yeah.
So I know, like, if when I moved, some people know me as one way, and in my new situation, I present myself differently. And if people who knew me from each of those two different areas of my life met each other and talked about me, they would say a totally different thing about me because I presented differently in a new setting. So in this new world of being recently divorced, you have the opportunity, in a sense, to present yourself differently to the world and maybe use that as a growth opportunity too then.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is a great time to grow as a person. and to make new friends, make new connections, those kinds of things. There's a lot of ways you can do that. And it's, usually a favorite expression I have is when one door closes, another one opens, right? And so, like, for example, if you suddenly get fired from a job, um, when that's happened to me, at first, it's like, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? How could they let me go? I didn't see this coming. But then what does that trigger? Well, job hunting or looking for new opportunities. And so, it's happened a couple times in my life where it's like, okay, now I start job hunting and opening my eyes. And then guess what? This door opens over here. This door opens over here, one, two, three, several doors, new doors open. So it can be like that with a divorce situation too. I encourage guys to think of it as kind of a rebirth, a new opportunity to, kind of what you said, sort of maybe reinvent yourself, or at a minimum, um, put yourself out there, meet people, that kind of thing. Meetup.com is a great place for that. And with meetup.com, just think about, hey, what do I like to do? What are my hobbies? And there's probably a meetup group that caters to that. I guess it depends on the size of your town. Like in larger cities, there's hundreds of different meetup groups for whatever your interest is. It's there.
Yeah, you could go to a meetup on goofy horror movies from the 80s or something, and you're like in the room with a bunch of people who love what you love.
Yeah.
And there you've already got something in common with somebody, and you didn't even have to try really hard. You're there because you love something and naturally meet people and connect, and at least you're putting yourself out there in a new way that maybe wasn't available to you when you first met your partner at the time, right? So there's a lot of different opportunities out there for you. What happens though when infidelity is part of the reason why your marriage ended? It could be on your part as the husband in this, or your partner has done this and there's a break because of infidelity. Any thoughts around kind of how to manage this transition with that in mind?
Yeah, so that infidelity is for most people a very tough one to deal with, and I had to deal with that myself. So I went through that myself firsthand, and I did not expect that in any way, shape, or form. I did not see that coming. I did not know what was happening, and then all of a sudden, boom! I found out, and it was, it was not good. What I've come to learn, and a lot of people don't really understand this, but infidelity is really mostly about the cheater and not the person who's been cheated on. If you've been cheated on, people tend to look internally. What did I do wrong? Where did I fail? That kind of thing. And it is always good to think about, your part in the situation and not place the blame elsewhere. However, bottom line is cheating is generally about that other person and issues that that they haven't dealt with in their lives. And, it's a mistake that they made, and it has not so much to do with you. A typical example of this would be like an absolutely stunning, drop dead gorgeous woman gets cheated on. And it's like, how, and people are like, how could that guy cheat on her? She's beautiful. She's perfect. Da, da, da. Well, cheating is usually not about looks, right? It's about other unmet needs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's very important to put that in perspective, that it's really much less about, hey, where did the cheated person go wrong, versus, hey, the cheater has issues to work on.
I know one quote I heard many years ago was along the lines that if somebody has a problem with you in relationships or whatever, to some degree, you were part of the problem. And it could simply be that you're there. That's it. But you're physically there in the room. You're physically there in a relationship. And it could be as simple as that, or there's something else behind it. But you have a sense of accountability in this whole thing that for some degree, in some way, you're part of the problem. And if you can kind of help identify that in your relationship and yourself, that might give you some ways that you can grow. And maybe you can, for your future relationships, you can show up differently because you identify something that maybe was part of the situation that maybe led to this breakup. Is that something that you've ever heard of or seen at all?
So, all right, here's a phrase I love. And it can be life-changing if you understand it and embrace it. Okay. Radical self-responsibility. Actually, it's not even a phrase, it's just three words put together.
Yeah.
It's all about taking responsibility for yourself, for your life. And it's so easy to place blame elsewhere when things don't go our way. It
Right.
is my wife's fault. It's the kid's fault. It's the dog's fault. It's whoever the current president of the country is. It's their fault.
Yeah.
It's this, it's that. And we have so much power and control, and we give that up when we start playing the blame game. So if we really take responsibility, and you know what? If I'm driving down the road and I notice a drunk driver swerving, in front of me, I can't control how he drives, but I control my reaction, which is going to be, hey, I'm going to slow down and back away from that situation.
Yep.
And so
Good.
that's very important too, because yeah, there's a lot of things that happen out there we don't we don't control, but we do always have control over how do we react to that.
We've been going back to the breakup and your loss of friendship. I know that some of the guys that I know, their friendships are with other couples, and it might be through their ex and her relationships. So her best friend and her husband, the four of you are friends, and now that this breakup has happened, the only connection you have to this other guy was through your ex and her relationships. And now one of the guys that you really look forward to hanging out with, there's this kind of gap now where, going over to see him and hanging out at his place or something, or doing life with him still, there's a connection through his partner to your ex, and that gets all complicated, and you really start to lose your identity in that some of those relationships that you really valued outside of your relationship with your ex is now strained or challenged or broken, and you're missing that part of your identity as well. So how do we then, as we're working on ourselves and growing, what do we do then to kind of address this loss of identity that we're feeling?
So one of the exercises I take my guys through is called a future self meditation. Okay.
Okay.
So when you're recently divorced, your head kind of tends to be buried in the sand. You're focused on the murkiness of the current situation and kind of stuck in the mud, if you will. With a future self meditation, I take guys through this meditation where I'm saying, okay, we're going to travel to down this path and we're going to envision you 2 years from now. And what does your life look like? Where are you living? Who are you friends with? So, and I get them to sort of imagine this sort of ideal life that they would, see themselves in. What kind of job would you be doing? That kind of thing. And it helps them to pull, it helps in pulling them out of that murkiness that they're currently in. And then they see in the future, like, wow, that's a pretty cool position. I'm seeing a happy guy with a good job, good career. Maybe I'm with a new person, dating a new person, and it really helps to pull guys out and focus more on that and working toward that. And like, okay, now that I see that 2 year really awesome version of me, 2 year out version of me, how do I get there? What do I need to do? And then so then you start making goals from there and breaking it down. How do I get to that point? So I think that helps a lot. I think that takes a lot of the focus off of the like immediate term murkiness that there is usually present with divorces. So, and then going back to like the dating thing, right? So I mean, there's nothing wrong with dating even if you're just divorced, but you have to understand that you're not ready for a new relationship, and and you want to be transparent with anybody you get involved with. Be like, hey, here's the deal, I'm recently divorced, and so I'd love to hang out with you, and we have fun, and go here, go there, do this, do that. But don't try to like, oh, I want to dive into a new relationship because I want to replace the person I'm no longer with. Also related to that is, this is sort of a whole other topic. I'll try to keep it kind of brief, but in our culture, we tend to think of like that person we marry, they have to fulfill need number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, like so many different things. And another human is going to be good at meeting certain needs of ours, maybe 5 of them. The other 5, we shouldn't expect them to meet those needs. We should find other people to meet those needs. For example, I like to go hiking. I love the outdoors, right? So if I'm with a person that does not like the outdoors, I'm going to invite her, hey, you want to come on a hike, but I'm not going to force it. And if she's like, you know what, I just really hate the outdoors, I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't be with her. She doesn't like hiking. No, I'll find friends that do that. There's plenty of people that do that. So we should never expect that other person in our lives to like fulfill all these needs we have. And I think that's, our culture, like people probably don't ask you, hey, Dave, do you have a lot of really good friends in your life? No, they don't really ask that. They might say, hey, are you married? And then you start talking about, your spouse. But we kind of like, it's like all the emphasis is on about being married and a spouse. But what's important is connection. So connection is what humans really need. So that connection could be, okay, I have my wife and I have a connection with her. I have my best friend, I have a connection with him. I have the hiking meetup group and I hang out with them. And so it's kind of finding that balance and not expecting that other person to fulfill all those things.
It's a great point, I think. And you have to realize as well that you're not that for your partner as well, where they're also looking for things that you're not. So, I think that's interesting because you wrap your whole identity in that person. And what I guess one of the things I've heard from my friends as well is they've gone from, they feel really betrayed because of what's happened in the relationship. They didn't see it coming. They get that shock, that awe that feels like a traffic accident where you're just going through life doing your thing and then wham, this hits you in your relationship. And for whatever reason, the relationship ends. But they go from like deep love to deep resentment for the person that they really cared for and they thought they were going to do life with forever and storybook ending, the whole thing. And then it changes and the same amount of passion they had in loving that person seems to switch to more resentment and maybe even hatred because they don't know what to do with that emotion that they had for that person and the deep trust that they feel has been broken in a relationship. So how do we rewire ourselves so that we don't slide into hating another person or hating the relationship? What do we do to make sure that we don't go down to some dark paths, even post-divorce? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, because that's basically how it went for me. It's like I really strongly disliked her. Hate's a strong word.
Yeah.
Really strongly disliked her for a couple of years after the fact until I was able to properly process it, deal with it. And and now I'm actually in touch with my ex-wife. So not to the extent of like friends and hanging out, but instead in a cordial sense, and we do chat every now and again. So and that's so that's a total and complete turnaround from how it was in the 2 years immediately following the divorce.
Yeah.
So so it took me a long time to get there. So to answer your question a little more directly though, like we got to realize like, hey, the thing happened, like the accident, your traffic accident, your analogy, that thing happened and you can't undo that thing. You can't change that. But again, it's about how we react to that. And so, yeah, there is going to be a set of emotional steps that we go through to process that. And definitely talking it out usually is a huge help. Most people, if they don't talk it out, they're going to tend to stay stuck in the mud for a much longer period of time. Excuse me. And that resentment will be, a huge presence in their life, holding them back for a long period of time, unless they process it, work through it, talk to somebody about it. So I encourage people to talk to your friend about it. Talk to Um, maybe if you're join a meetup group, carry my example, like on a hike, you're on a hike with a dozen other people. Maybe you make a connection with somebody there, and sometimes talking to a stranger is better because a lot of guys, hey, we might be embarrassed talking about those deep things with our friends, but here's a stranger who, oh, wow, this person is a very good listener, and then talking about it with them, or seeking help of somebody who's kind of more trained or inclined to deal with this kind of thing, such as myself.
Yeah, perfect segue. That's the way you need to do. You need to go to the website and you need to connect as well. So, again, all that information's in the show notes. The one thing, too, Marty, when I listen to your story and what you've come out of, you talk earlier about those 2 years of really darkness that you kind of had to work your way through. I'm glad you came through that because I think sometimes men get caught there and they don't know how to move forward in that. So talk a little bit about how you went from that stage after, the marriage ended and you went through that dark period. How did you go from that to where you are today wanting to help men in their journey? This is a big difference. And I just want to speak to that guy that's in that stage right now, feeling quite alone, broken relationships, lost, down on themselves, guilt. There's a lot of things going on, and they're stuck in that 2 year period that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
How do we go from that to where you are today? Any guidance for us?
Yeah, so there's definitely a process to it. And
Yeah.
so, and like the 12 modules in my of my classes kind of take the guys through that step by step through 12 steps. But yeah, but just to be clear, so I guess it's already probably pretty clear, but when I divorced 12 years ago, I had no idea what to do. And that's why I got stuck in this place for
Yeah.
place for 2 years. And I've had two other breakups since that time, not marriages, but breakups. And so it wasn't until I really said, okay, I'm gonna start working on myself. I'm gonna start reading books on these kind of topics, start really understanding what we're going through. So now I'm in a position where like, okay, it's starting to click now. And I realize, hey, there are steps we can take. And those steps are kind of self-reflection, right? And so thinking about, okay, the past is the past. I can't change the past. However, what can I do from this point going forward? So how can I keep my mind on positive things rather than the negative? There's a really great book called Positive Intelligence. And in that book, the author outlines there's 10 different saboteurs in our brains. And those saboteurs, while they do serve a purpose, they are not serving us the way we want our mind to be working. So there's the saboteur part of the brain, and the other part is, he calls it the sage part of the brain. So we want to learn to quiet the saboteurs and encourage our sage part of our brain to make better decisions for us. And the saboteurs are the ones that are going to kind of tend to keep us stuck in those situations of stuck in the mud and prevent us from moving forward. So that's something I cover pretty early on in the program, is how do we quiet our saboteurs? How do we lift up and encourage the sage part of our brains to move us forward, to dig us out of this sort of hole we're in?
Love it. So for people working with you, Marty, like, is this going to be all one-on-one that you're going to be doing coaching? Is it more a group setting, a combination of that? What does it feel like to kind of work with you as we come to the website and sign up to be part of these 12 modules?
So yeah, so most people, all right, so most people sign up for the basic program, which is going through these modules. And it's a lot of sort of, reading the material, which is not a crazy amount of, it's not a crazy reading assignment, but it's, reading some material and then following the exercises that come after that, the reading material for module number 1, right?
Yeah.
Then I review that the answers that they provided to those questions, and I provide that feedback in email format.
Okay.
Then I also have a live weekly Zoom that everybody is welcome to join, regardless of what point in the program that they are in.
Good.
So they do have some one-on-one access to me as far as that goes. So the majority of people, the majority of guys, that's the program they're going to go through. I do offer one-on-one coaching, and that's for somebody that really wanted to focus more intensely on this process, work through it quicker, or maybe they've gone through all the modules and now they're like, hey, this has really moved me. This has really helped me out. What else can I do? What else can I do next? And then I do offer the one-on-one coaching.
Was there a point for you, Marty, after the relationship ended and everything? Was there a moment for you where something happened for you that kind of you realized that your life could be better after divorce than it was even maybe for you during your relationship? Did something happen for you?
So I guess for me, part of my journey was I love to travel. And when I was married, we, we had the house, we had pets, these kind of things. And I now, as much as I love animals and I love pets, I don't have any because I like to travel and going, especially to other countries. I spent 1 year in Africa. And when you really step out of your comfort zone and go to a whole other country where it's a whole different culture, different food, maybe a different language, everything's different, it really opens and expands your mind. And so it's a great opportunity for self-reflection and learning about like, hey, who am I really? What really makes me tick? What really drives me? So for me, that the traveling, the getting out of my comfort zone is huge.
The other part of my audience for Dad Space, Marty, is dads that have children. And
Mm-hmm.
I think children adds another whole element to our conversation because now we are co-parenting with our ex. So there's more opportunity that we may be interacting with them, with our children. So that you can't just do a clean break, I would say, and never see that person again. If that's part of your healing to move forward, you have this person in your life still.
Mm-hmm.
Your ex is still there. Children are going back and forth. You don't want to vilify your ex to your children because that's not going to help anybody. So any words of wisdom to the dads that are here listening, and on top of everything we've talked about today, they have to also then deal with their dynamics with their children and all of that. Any words of wisdom on maybe what you've learned from working with other dads and through your program that we can use to make this as easy as possible for the kids? I think that's my main concern is I would want to do all I could as a dad for my children to make them feel loved, accepted, and cared for, because the relationship doesn't really relate to them directly in my relationship with their mother, but I want to make sure I do something right for my kids. Any words for dads that are listening?
Yeah. So, I mean, the number one thing with kids is, it's tough on the kids, right? And so the number one thing is you're trying to keep their lives as normal as possible. And establishing routines for kids is very important. And so when you get divorced, there's a lot of changes that are happening, right? So you're now in separate households. The kids may or may not be going to like a different school, for example. And so it's a big transition. It's a big change for the kids. And so we want to establish new and positive routines for the kids as as early as we can, and then kind of stick to those and be as consistent as possible. Also, we want to make sure that kids don't blame themselves, because as much as, like you said, the kids had really nothing to do with the fact that the adult relationship didn't work. Depending on the child, they may say, "Oh, this is my fault. Mom and dad are not together because of me," right? And so we might not see that because logically that doesn't make any sense to us as adults, but that could be the case for the kids. So we need to really talk to them and reassure them that, hey, this is an adult situation where mom and me didn't work out, but it has nothing to do with you, and I love you as much today as I ever have. Your mother loves you as much today as she ever has, and that will never change.
In all of this conversation, Marty, I'd love to know what it is about all of this that drives you to have this tool and resource for men as we work through this new life change in our life and our new situation. What is it that drives you to do this? Because, for a podcast, for example, a podcast is all about knowing your why. Like, why are you coming to the mic? Why are you creating content? Why are you writing a book? Why are you doing whatever it is you do? Knowing the why is the one thing that's going to keep you going forward. So I'd love to know your why in all of this and kind of like your motivation and why you're doing this. You could be doing anything, but this is really your passion. So what is it about this that drives you forward?
Yeah, great question. So at age 27, I wouldn't be doing this. At age, 35, 45, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm 53, and I've had a good amount of success in my life in like the financial part of things, the kind of career financial part of things, and health wise, physical, I've always done well, always been fit, healthy, that kind of thing. Where I've struggled in the past is with the relationship side of things. And so once I got some coaching, did that self-reflection, that self-development, really got that figured out, I was like, wow, this made a giant impact in my life. And I learned so much, and I don't want to keep this inside. Like, I want to share this. Like, I've got a lot to share, there's a lot of help I can give to guys. And then especially the fact that when, that 2-year dark period when I turned to alcohol, I don't want guys choosing that path, so we want to lift up everybody. And there's just not a lot of sort of, attention or programs that are focused on, hey, let's lift up men. Right. And so
Yeah,
I feel like, I can do that. I am doing that. And it's much needed. We need, men that are strong, that are healthy, they're confident, they're happy, they're leaders. And, the world needs that. And I feel like I'm helping to lift guys up into those kind of roles.
okay. So, Marty, it's great having you on here, and I'm looking forward to the journey for you and working with men, the website as well, and you have plans for a podcast potentially in the future to talk to men directly. Are you working on like a companion book that maybe goes along with this as well? As what else is kind of in the works for you?
Yes, I do have. Excuse me. So I do have a workbook that's part of the Divorced Men's Academy. So that's part of that program. And I also am authoring a book that will come out in 2024.
Good.
And so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And then in relation to that, you will start kind of seeing a little more of me. I will be doing some speaking engagements, be kind of out there a little more, and probably being interviewed more and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Good. So would you be available for like a virtual speaking engagement? Somebody wanted you to come on and talk to a group of men and have you on as a subject matter expert. You can talk about your academy and all of that as well. Would you be open if somebody listening to this goes, I think Marty would be perfect for my next event? If they wanted to do that, they could connect you with your website then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I told people I was getting more involved with public speaking, one obvious question was, well, if your focus is on recently divorced men, in what real life scenarios are you on a stage in front of 100 recently divorced men? Not that often, but to your point, where I can reach them more directly is, virtual situations. So absolutely, I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of the virtual type of situations.
Well, you've done that for us, and we have a global audience. So people are listening to us around the world. So you just never know, Marty, who's going to hear this and go, Marty's the guy. He's the one we need. So exciting. I'm excited to have you on the show. Again, shout out to your website and where we go, and maybe some of the things that are coming in the future that we can find on your website, resources, anything that's coming up that we can access more of you through your website.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the website itself. Also, I do have a lot of sort of freebies that I email out, and it's very action oriented. I have these like, okay, here's the issue, and boom, here's the action steps to take to address that thing. And so I am frequently I have a lot of those, and I'm always creating more of those because ultimately it's all about taking action, right? So if you go to school, for example, and you just read the book, but you don't change or anything, take any action based on that, then it's your life's not going to change. And so I believe that us humans, we can, if we want to and set our mind to it and take the right approaches, we can make big changes much quicker than we realize. But it takes a lot of effort and again action to make that happen.
Good. What's the easiest way to sign up for those emails, Marty?
Through the website.
Okay. All right. So we'll have all that in the show notes. Before we go, Marty, is there anything else that maybe we haven't touched on that you feel would be a miss if we didn't mention or cover as we close off for the husband, the dad who's listening to this? Is there anything we didn't really touch on that you think is really key to our conversation today?
Maybe just kind of following on to what I just said, like whatever your situation is, you might really feel stuck and be like feel stuck, feel overwhelmed. Like, what do I do? How am I ever going to get out of this? Sometimes it's not easy to see that light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm telling you that light is there for all of us. It really, really is. No matter what your situation is, no matter what your struggle is. And I know there can be a lot of very dark moments and struggles, especially in relation to kids, when there's kids involved and the ex spouse is not cooperating and that kind of thing. It can cause a lot of stress and have a major impact. But just know that no situation is permanent, and whatever your current situation is, you can change it. You can change it for the better. There is that light at the end of the tunnel, and people don't usually think of divorce as like, hey, this is a great new opportunity for me to create a new life for myself. But it really can be that. So I highly encourage men to think of it in those terms.
Excellent. So if you're listening to this and you've got to this point, thank you for listening to the end of the podcast. But Marty has got a great heart for you as a man who's going through this in your life, and you're looking for that resource. You're looking for that person who has your back and can help you with some real practical things you can put in place, and community and support, everything. Marty has all of these things for you and I just would encourage you to reach out to Marty. He definitely knows what he's talking about, and he wants to help you grow in this stage of your relationship and in your life. So if that's you, this is the perfect person to talk to. And if you're looking for a guest speaker to come on and lead a conversation for your community, reach out to Marty, and he would love to be a part of that. Marty, thank you so much for being on Dad Space. And I have a podcast called Living the Next Chapter for authors. So keep me in mind when the book is ready. I'd love to have you come over there and talk to the author community and share the story behind your book there as well. And then we have the How to Podcast series. When the podcast happens, I would love to have you come over there. We can talk to you all day, everywhere, because you're doing it all. So thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast. And I really appreciate your desire to help men. And you could be doing so many other things in your life and career, and this could be a side thing, but I can tell that you really do care about the guys that are living through this right now, and it shows. So thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed being on the show. You're an awesome guy. I love what you're doing. And, you know, I know that all the dads out there that are listening, they appreciate you. So know that what you're doing is awesome. I appreciate you. They appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marty. Again, everyone, all the information's in the show notes. Head over there and grab your information from Marty, and make sure you reach out and connect with him and say thank you as well for all the things he's covered today. I know this is just touching on it. There's so much more, but that's why you need to sign up and be a part of Marty's community. That's the reason. So thanks, Marty, for all your time. Hey, thanks for listening to Dad Space today. I'm so thankful that you were here for this episode. If you like the show, please let another dad know. Hey, that kind of rhymed. Anyways, share the episode out with somebody in your circle who would love Dad Space. That means so much to us here for our guests who donate their time to be on the show. And we just want to see this grow. So, again, another rhyme. Oh, wow. Anyhow, I think I need to write a song or something. Thank you for being here with Dad Space. And again, looking forward to the next episode. Look forward to having you here again with us. And if we can help you in any way, or if you have a great guest idea for the show, a topic that you would love us to cover, we would love to do that here on Dad Space. So thanks for listening, and thanks for being part of the community. And to you, Dad, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing Dad Space. Catch you on the next one. Take care.